But let's bring in my panel now. Shadow Environment Minister Jonathon Duniam and Senior Fellow at the Menzies Research Centre, columnist, of course, with The Australian, Nick Cater. Well, Nick, let's start with the NDIS. All the rorts. I mean, I've stopped being shocked by them. It's a $42 billion scheme. But on radio this morning, Bedford went through some extra ones I didn't know about. I mean, I knew about the strip clubs, but you've now got providers offering to take clients on pub crawls, even a weed or marijuana festival near Byron Bay. Bill Shorten says, yes, we're going to reform it. He's put laws into the parliament, says he's going to crack down on it all. But what sort of hope do you have that Labor's serious here?
Well, this is the problem, Peter, and I think probably as you've seen today, you've got the states involved. I mean, who actually runs this thing? It seems that the federal government don't seem to be able to do anything without the state's approval, and they're not going to approve this if it involves a lack of money. But you put your finger on the problem here, it's provider capture on an enormous scale. You've got these provider groups, some are very good, but a lot of them have just learnt very well how to get the most money out of the system, presumably on behalf of their client, but so much of it, of course, is self-serving. And Labor's got to fix this. It's Labor's problem. It's Labor's scheme. All the faults embedded in this scheme were put in there by Labor back in the Gillard days. It has to fix it, and it has to fix it this term of government.
And you are spot on too, because the way it's constructed, every state's got to agree, and the spend is uncapped. So if you're a pink bat sort of a dodgy guy, and we saw them, remember, in the Gillard years, this is a honeypot. But I mean, these things should be ruled out. I mean, it's sex trips and weed trips. No, it's for medical care and medical care only. Jono, talk to me about the Northern Territory, because your colleague today, Jacinta Price, she's had a bit to say about this late-breaking news about a curfew after riots on the streets in Alice Springs. Have a listen.
This situation will get worse if it is not dealt with, and dealt with immediately. Prime Minister Albanese needs to go back to Alice Springs, needs to deploy the ADF, needs to have a presence in our community to make the people of Alice Springs feel some sense of safety once and for all.
I tell you, geez, we love her. I mean, she speaks from the heart there. I mean, yes, there's a curfew, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. These kids have got to be out in the street, that's allowed, but after 6 o'clock at night, they've got to be home and stay home. But I think the army is a real prospect, isn't it? Surely we should be thinking about it, Jono.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I think the best thing the PM could do would be to take the advice of a local. Jacinta isn't a fly-in politician. She lives there. That's her community. She knows what needs to happen. I had a chat with her today about this, and they don't need tokenistic sort of responses. They need a presence, as she says. The ADF, a presence there of that nature would certainly be very helpful. The PM should actually do his job and get out, go and understand from the community directly. As I understand it, even now, the PM hasn't been in touch with the Chief Minister to understand how the federal government can help with this situation. So yes, Jacinta is right. Get in there and make sure that there is a presence, and we actually can enforce some civility in that community. They need it desperately. Jacinta is absolutely right.
And I'll tell you what, he wanted voices from local communities, Aboriginal voices, to tell him what they wanted. She couldn't have been any clearer there. Hey, Nick, the cash transport company, we all used to see it on the streets in its big Armour Guard vans, Armour Guard. It's in trouble. A lot of retailers and banks don't use it. It's struggling to stay afloat. It's had a bit of a lifeline in the last day or so, but it's just highlighting, isn't it? If this is the last cash carrier in Australia, it tells me that cash is disappearing, and that's a worry.
Well, it's a big worry, Peter. I mean, I like using cash. I use it whenever I can, which is increasingly less these days. But look, I really think that this is something that the government, the Reserve Bank and those responsible for cash flow need to look into, because we do actually basically need cash at ATMs, in shops, because not everybody can use a card. Some people don't want to use a card. Some people prefer cash management because it's easier not to, spend too much. I really think, I think we really have to look at this as a national issue and determine what needs to be done to make sure we can get cash out there into the economy, circulating the economy, powering the economy.
And I might add too, the Treasurer has got to step in. If a business is forcing us only to use a card, if they won't let us pay with legal tender in cash, then they can't be charging us merchant fees on a direct debit card or anything like that. Fine on a credit card, but if they won't let us use cash, get rid of those merchants' fees. Johnny, before we go, Tassie, what's happening there? Are the Libs any closer to forming government?
Well, Peter, in good news, it looks like we will have a fourth-term Liberal government, albeit in minority, which was not unexpected. I mean, it's 4 terms. It's very hard for a government to secure a fourth term. Jeremy Rockliff has, with the support, hopefully, and all of that will be worked out once the count is completed, but of the Lambie party, Jackie Lambie has been indicating that she wants to work with the government. And she realises, thankfully, that she has a job to do, and that is to provide stability for the Tasmanian community. What is a striking outcome of this election, of course, is that after 3 elections and 10 years, Beck White and the Labor Party have failed to make any ground. They have failed to resonate with the Tasmanian community and have a vote in the 20s. That is astounding. They should have had this election stitched up, but they didn't. So thankfully, common sense and hopefully some stability will reign for the next 4 years.
I think there's a flight of people back to the major parties, and I think the Greens, hopefully, are in trouble at the next federal election. Well, I hope I'm right there. Have a good Easter, gents. See you next week.